I just hope that people realize that investing in real estate is actually very, very possible, that anybody can do it, and hopefully they can too. A pastor in Sacramento didn't have any money. You know, pastors don't make much money. Yep. And so he didn't have any savings, but he said, Dustin, I know I'm not going to be able to work forever, so help me to invest in real estate. I asked him, how long ago were you financially independent? When did you become financially independent? And she says, oh, I'm not. I still got to work a job. I'm like, wait, you've got 4,000 headaches that you have to deal with and you're not financially independent? What's going on? So here's what I say. This is not a get-rich-quick scheme, but this is a get-wealthy plan. Just little by little, we just keep buying and buying. I don't want to talk to my property managers. In fact, I just want a check. I want them to run the business and send me a check every single month.
So Dustin, welcome back to the Personal Finance Podcast.
Thanks, Andrew. Super pumped to be back on. And thank you so much for having me on for last week's episode. Super great questions. And I just hope that people realize that investing in real estate is actually very, very possible, that anybody can do it, and hopefully they can too.
Exactly. And I highly encourage every single person out there, if you haven't heard part one, go listen, because that's going to be kind of the baseline of what we're talking about today. And we're going to talk through some of the things that I am personally thinking through when it comes to real estate today. And then we're going to tactically have Dustin kind of show us and talk through some of these lessons that we talked about in part one and show some of the tactics and the things that we can try to tackle here as we go through this process. So Dustin, I'm going to lay out everything to you here, and then I want you to kind of ask me questions and we'll go through this entire process. So I just sold a business, and I sold it. For those of you listening out there, some of you may know that I owned pickleball facilities, and we sold the business to one of our partners. And so now, one of my big goals is to figure out a way to get back investing into real estate. So in my past, I invested in real estate with two cash partners, and we would buy single family houses and small multifamilies. So the small multifamilies, I'm talking duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes, everything that was considered, very small multifamilies. And that's what we purchased. And we would do, one at a time, really, really strict deal parameters in terms of the way that I structured these deals. And then in the end, when we decided to, hey, we're going to just go and invest, in part ways, we ended up selling the portfolio because we had these partners together. And I figured, hey, I can go do this myself. Well, since then, once I sold the portfolio, I started to kind of buy businesses, and I haven't gotten back into real estate yet. So one of my big goals is I already have experience in real estate in terms of kind of investing. And so one of my big goals is to think through this process. Now, a hurdle that I have in place is that locally, and this is what you and I talked about last episode, but locally, I am having a hard time finding deals. So I'm in the Tampa area, which is a hot market because a lot of folks from all over the country kind of moved down here during COVID. And so real estate prices increased. And so now they're kind of at a flat rate right now, but I have not been able to find deals in my specific area, and probably haven't looked hard enough yet, to be honest, but that is just one thing that is one of the hurdles that I have to jump over. And so you mentioned in the last episode that you kind of invest out of state and you invest in different areas, which is something I've always been interested in. And so looking at this, how would you first, if you were in my situation, how would you think about maybe some of the properties that you were looking for? Because I've also considered commercial and kind of thinking through that process, but I do have experience, and all my experience is in residential. And really, I want to invest for cash flow. So I'm going to give you a number. I'm going to try to think through this because, hey, this is maybe a good for the title too, but let's just say somebody wants to make, me specifically, I want to make $10,000 a month in cash flow, okay? And because I want to make $10,000 a month in cash flow, I want to kind of put a plan together in order to do this. And let's, for argument's sake, because this is also true, for getting back started into real estate investing, I have $250,000 that I want to start investing into real estate. And so this is the starting point for me if we need to do down payments or if we need to do creative financing, some of those types of things. And so I want to build up this portfolio over the course of the next decade in order to produce at least $10,000 a month in cash flow. And probably my parameters always change, where I always just kind of, the ball just keeps kind of moving higher in my court. So I always just kind of increase that stuff all the time. But let's start at that point in time and tell me kind of what your thoughts are there.
Yeah. So whenever I work with any student, the first thing we have to realize are a couple things, or not realize, but like help the student to come to understand. Number one, their risk tolerance. Are they okay with investing out of state? Number one, getting leverage or getting financing, which we'll cover in just a second. But then also their goals. And so I definitely appreciate the goal of being able to make $10,000 a month. It's definitely something that's very doable, especially we're starting at $250,000. In fact, I've had students that, like, I'll give you one quick example. A pastor in Sacramento didn't have any money. Pastors don't make much money.
Yep.
And so he didn't have any savings, but he said, Dustin, I know I'm not going to be able to work forever. So help me to invest in real estate. So what we did was I helped him get a HELOC, a home equity line of credit on his house. He tapped into that because he owned it since 2017. So he has a good amount of equity. And then he had $250,000 that he has now access to capital, or you remember those terms, those words, access to capital. It doesn't have to be your money that you slaved away for and saved and, got 0.5% or less in a savings account. So his property worked for him. Took that cash, bought a property in Atlanta, Georgia. That now property is free and clear because he used his home equity line of credit. Well, you might be thinking, well, he's got a payment, right? Yes, he does. But that new house that he bought, he then got it fixed up, got it rented out, got it managed, and now I think I can't remember how much like $600 or something like that a month of passive income. He refinanced it, pulled that cash out of that Atlanta property, then paid off his HELOC. Now he has a HELOC to do it over and over again. So here's the reason why I brought up that story. It's having access to capital. So if for you listening, let's say you might have an IRA. Well, we can do a self-directed IRA. If you have a HELOC or a home that has a little bit of equity, we can utilize that. There are countless ways to get financing. But Andrew, where you're starting at $250,000, I'm going to give you one piece of advice that you will probably never hear anybody on Instagram or TikTok tell you this, that coaches people how to invest in real estate. What I'm going to tell you is it's very easy to have a perspective of, okay, I get that I could save a little bit of money if I paid a little bit more for this property. Well, I don't want you to do that because I don't want you to waste your money. Let's say, let me switch it. Let's say you only had $2,500 to invest in real estate. You're not going to be just able to spend willy-nilly. Oh, we could just overspend, or we could just over. I want you to think of it like you're a business owner. As a business owner, we don't overpay for things. We don't waste our money on things. In fact, we fight for every penny. So, Andrew, that's where you're at. If you have $250,000 or even more, if you have $100,000, it's easy just to say, let's just throw money at it. No. Don't do that, because I want you to build in great investing principles so that you're then going to capture equity. Give you a quick example. So before I get to that example, we were talking about risk tolerances and goals. You already showed me your goals in last episode. So if you haven't listened to last episode, definitely go back and listen to last episode. I know Andrew has some risk tolerance that he can tolerate getting a loan. He obviously, you just heard, he sold his businesses, which is amazing. So we got that. Now he won his goals, which is $10,000 a month. Now, one other quick question before I get to that story, Andrew, what excites you about real estate? Is it commercial real estate? Is it like a short-term type of property? Is it long-term? Or is it the cash flow that you're looking for and you're open to any deals?
I think the cash flow is what I'm mostly looking for, and I'm pretty much open to any deals because my risk tolerance is pretty high. I'm willing to go out of state. I'm willing to kind of go anywhere at this point in time. So I am willing to kind of go whatever cash flows is what I'm willing to go after. I think the one area that I would be less bullish on, and this is just me, probably just my opinion to be honest, but I'd be less bullish on vacation rentals. I'd rather it be something that's recession-proof long-term.
I 100%, wholeheartedly, 100% agree. Okay, so a follow-up question to that is, okay, so we want cash flow, which is absolutely right. Follow-up question, have you ever played Monopoly?
My favorite board game of all time.
Exactly, same here, awesome. My kids literally, an hour ago, we're playing it downstairs. We homeschool the kids, and so they were downstairs playing Monopoly. Okay, so I love commercial real estate, but in Monopoly, how do you win? Where do you start?
You start with just the single family houses.
Correct. You get the land, you put houses on there, and eventually you build up to where you get to the commercial real estate. Now you're going to hear other people tell you, oh yeah, commercial real estate, like large apartment complexes, is so easy. If you could buy a single family home, you could buy a large apartment. I'm like, no, that is the dumbest advice. Trust me. No, absolutely not. It's so easy to get a 30-year fixed mortgage, find a realtor or find somebody that wants to sell you a property and buy the house and make cash flow and have money coming in every single month. When you buy in a large apartment complex or a large commercial facility, there's so many moving parts that are just, you don't even think of, like, oh my goodness, how old are those stairs? And will I actually get a violation from the city if those stairs, like, you wouldn't normally think about that sort of stuff, or that boiler so just like playing Monopoly, I suggest that you start with single-family homes. It could be, and when I say single-family, it's 4 units and below. When I say commercial or multifamily, it's 5 units and above, because that's the way mortgages are looked at. 4 units and below, you can still get an amazing 30-year fixed mortgage on. That's why I love 30-year fixed, because after 30 years, it's paid off and it's lower interest rates, all that sort of stuff. But 4 units. So whenever I say single family home, realize this. Dustin is saying 4 units and below. So check. That's what we do. We start there. Now, one quick last thing, because I want you to share. I'm going to add another question for you. So I've talked to a lot of quote unquote multifamily investors. They're called syndicators. They basically just syndicate a deal. They're flipping multifamily. That's all they do. It's really, really sad. But what somebody I was talking to, they had 4,000 units. Remember, I have 30 single family homes. I do have 800 apartment complexes, but that's not my apartment complexes units. That's not what makes me financially independent. What does make me financially independent? My 30 single family homes. Now, when you look at the property that this person said they had 4,000 units, I asked them, how long ago were you financially independent? When did you become financially independent? And she says, oh, I'm not. I still got to work a job. I'm like, wait, you've got 4,000 headaches that you have to deal with, and you're not financially independent? What's going on? So here's what I say. This is my perspective. If you want cash flow, nothing better than single family homes. If you want to have generational wealth, nothing better than single family homes. If you want to scale, then there's nothing better than single family homes. When you play Monopoly, you start with single family homes, eventually you get to multifamily. It was only after I was financially independent for 10 years before I finally said, okay, let me go ahead and get into the apartment complexes. Now, don't get me wrong, apartment complexes are great that eventually you'll have payoff, but you don't get cash flow. Does this all make sense?
It 100% makes sense. And I will tell you up front that I've said this on the podcast before, single family homes were by far my favorite place to invest. Why? Because A, the tenants usually were just better tenants overall. And B, they had less headaches, which obviously isn't going to be my problem as we start to talk through this in a second. But C, they would stay longer. They would stay, 5, 6, 7 years some of the times. And so I really loved single family homes for that purpose.
Yeah. So what I love is if you're investing not in your area, but you're investing out of state. The reason why I love investing out of state is because I'm a doer. If there's a property like in my city that somebody's, the clogged toilet, I'm going to go there myself and do it. But because it's out of state, I don't have in my brain, it's not in my brain to ever go do anything. So I make sure that I afford, or how I say it, all the expenses are covered for any repairs, so that if there's ever a repair, I don't have to think, oh, shoot, can I afford this? No. I've already covered those expenses every single time I bought the property. And then every single month I get cash flow coming in, and I can also pay for repairs. Now, in thinking about single family homes, if you're looking, okay, I want to get $10,000 a month in cash flow, then we're probably looking at close to 20 single family homes that are making $500 a month in passive income. Now, to get there, it's hard to go from one property to 20 if you don't start right. And so definitely go back, everybody. I want you to go back and listen to last week's episode where I talked to you about how to build the business right, how to start with building a business. Because if you build the business first, then you can scale. Because if you are managing your properties on your own, Andrew, you're going to be pulling your hair out eventually. You're going to be like, oh my goodness, I have so many calls. I have six properties, and there's 6 problems going on at one time. I have my businesses going on. I got my kids. You don't want that. You want somebody else's business to run that. So what I'm suggesting is if you want to get $10,000 a month, first we build a business, which means we find a good city to invest in, has a lot of inventory. 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,200 to 1,700 square feet. And I explained more in the last episode, so definitely go check out the last episode. But what we do is we find that one property. And here's my suggestion. If you really want to hit the $500 or more a month, is we're going to be looking for midterm properties. Okay. Co-living is great. Don't get me wrong. Co-living is great. You're going to make a lot of money, but there's a lot more moving parts, a lot more leases. That's where you rent out each room. But if you want the best of both worlds, long-term as well as short-term you have higher rent, or they rent up per day, so you make more money, but there's a lot of turnover, a lot of wear and tear on the property. When you do long-term, it's so much easier. It does work for you, and the people take care of the property, but you make less money. So in the set, here's a medium one, I think. I would love to see you invest not in a really rundown C, like a D area, but like a C+ area. Okay. And you're going to take that $250,000. We're going to start scaling by buying a first property with a down payment, where we're going to be making a midterm, or making that property into a midterm property. Let me give you an example. So I have one property in Peoria, Arizona, just next to Phoenix, and I could rent it for $2,000 a month long term. But I just put furniture in it, and then I pay for the utilities as well as internet. I'm renting it now for $3,600. So 2,000 to 36, $1,600. Now my expenses are maybe $400 or $500 a month at most. That's like the highest, hottest part of the month or the year when it's the highest electrical rate. So I'm at least making $1,000 more in my midterm rentals on the bad months. On the good months, I'm making like $1,300 more. So that's my suggestion: is we look for cities that are like Nashville would be a little harder, like the big metropolitan areas, really priced high. What we want is outlying areas, tertiary markets that are like cities that are like 20 minutes away. People still live there. There's still, businesses there. There's still nurses and all that sort of stuff. Does that make sense? Like midterm property is going to be the fastest way to get where you want to go.
I think so. And I think overall, how do you feel about midterms in terms of like long term and the longevity of those? Have they been around forever? How do you think about that?
So the great thing about midterm, actually, no, let me say it this way. What I love is to teach my students, we do not buy a property unless we can rent it for long term where we're still making cash flow. Like that's our fallback. If everything falls apart, well, we could long-term rent it and not lose money. So if you're going to bare minimum $250 a month, like that's worst case scenario. I have a long-term property. We could rent it for $250 a month. But then again, you think in 5 years, rent's going to go up. 10 years, rents are going to go up. So you're going to be better off buying it now than waiting. So that's number one. I tell all my students, we buy a property and we don't buy it unless we get long-term rented. Then we have an option to do midterm rentals. The reason why I love midterm rentals is you're not going to have any regulations from the city or the county. They're not going to stop you from renting over 30 days. They will stop you for 1 to 2 days because hotels, they're losing money. So they're lobbying, get all these regulations and stuff like that. So if you do 30, 60, 90 days, or instead of a 12-month lease, I personally think, and I have not, I'll say it this way, to be a little more, I guess, to help you to understand my perspective. Midterm has not been around since 2008. In fact, it started coming around 2016, 17. People had been doing it, but now it's coming more mainstream where a lot of people are doing it, a lot of nurses. And so they're still out there. And so I have not seen a down cycle with midterm. Now, when COVID happened, midterms were still fine, but short terms, they were struggling because people weren't traveling. So that's, people still have to work someplace. So when they're short term, they're traveling for a vacation or a wedding or something. So those can go by the wayside, but somebody who's going there for work, traveling executives, right, nurses and stuff, they have to be there, and the government's not going to shut them down for being able to live. No, but I have to live there. So that's where I'm a little caveat is I have not seen a huge down cycle like 2008 with midterm, but I am 100% in with midterm rentals as well as my long-term. Short terms are great, don't get me wrong, but in the downturn, they're going to be hurting really, really bad.
Perfect. And I think that's something for sure because of the cash flow differential. I think it's definitely worth it. And if you have that downside protection of, being able to rent it out for long term, I think you're still going to get the same cash flow that you would with any other long term. So I think that's great.
Absolutely. And if you're going to be finding homes, thinking about like your perspective of where you're going with $10,000 a month in passive income, $250,000 starting with, as well as you're okay with a little bit of leverage, getting loans on these properties, as long as you're making money every single month from that property, that's going to be putting cash in your pocket, then I can't think of any specific city right now, but if you think of any big metropolitan area, Nashville's one, Orlando's another. Let's see, other big ones. Indianapolis. To think of like big cities, go outside of those cities that are maybe, like I said, 10-minute drive, 20-minute drive outside. Let's say 20 miles outside of that. And the reason why we like those markets is there's still a lot of people that live there. There's still a lot of people that travel there for, like I said, weddings or graduations or funerals or you name it. There's a reason why hotels are everywhere. So think of that. And so with midterm, you still have a good city that has a lot of people, nurses. The one that I have was amazing in Peoria. This company found me on Airbnb. I was renting it for 30, 60, 90 days, and they booked it for 90 days, which was great. And then in the middle of it, they said, hey, Dustin, we want to rent it for 12 months at the same lease. So it's going to be a long-term lease, but we're going to pay the same rate. I'm like, please, absolutely. So I got $3,600 for 12 months. Yes, I'll lock it down for you. And so what I find is, like I said, so Phoenix is a pretty big area. Peoria is a smaller area, but it's still pretty big. So what I'm suggesting for you is we want to accumulate, if we get to 10 midterm rentals, more than likely, and one quick thing, you're going to find property managers that will manage it. You don't have to do this all yourself. So trust me, we'll be able to take care of that. We're not doing all the work. But if you get to 10 rentals that are midterm, more than likely, you're easily going to hit that 10 grand. If you get 10. Now, these have to be in good areas that are, people are traveling to and all that sort of stuff. But honestly, if you take that $250,000, it's not, I don't think you're going to be able to take that 250 to buy all 10, but over 3-4 years by, markets going up, you could refinance, pull some cash out, save that cash flow to buy more properties. That's one thing I try to tell everybody. This is not a get rich quick scheme, but this is a get wealthy plan. Just little by little, we just keep buying and buying. So in the first year, I could see you at least getting 2 or 3 in the first year in the same city. You start accumulating it. You get a property manager. So I could easily see you start doing that.
Absolutely. And I think that's perfect. That's a perfect starting point because I think overall when we're looking at this and we want to because that's the way I am. I want to get, I like base hits over and over and over again. I don't try to swing for the fences every single time. And so I think if we can find them, somewhere in a tertiary area that's right outside that big metropolitan area, and we can get this, get this ball rolling, I think that's the great starting point. Now to find some of these deals when we want to go through that process, is there something you recommend since it is out of state? This isn't something that's local. Like I know everybody in the local area here, but because it's out of state, how do you kind of think about that when you find those deals?
You're talking about finding.
Exactly. So like if I want to go, say I want to get started, like say I choose a location. Let's just say, we look for a location. Let's just use the Phoenix area as an example. And it's right outside the Phoenix area. And we're looking for, we want to find some of these midterm rentals. How would you go about looking for those if it is a new area that you've never invested in before?
Got it. So the number one thing is I do not look at properties. I do not have anybody send me deals until I know there's going to be somebody that can manage a property like for months and months and years and years and years. So I've even flown to, and I don't fly anywhere anymore. This is back when I first got started. I flew to a city to try to start finding properties and find a property manager. I couldn't find a good property manager that I liked. Like meaning, this was Springfield, Illinois. There probably are some great property managers, but I couldn't find any that I thought I would want to work with. So I didn't invest there. The reason why is I might have found a great property, but I don't want to manage the property. So what we do, let's say if it's Phoenix or the Phoenix area, because it's a very, very big area, what I would start doing is looking for property managers that manage midterm and long-term. And if they manage midterm, they're definitely going to manage short-term. But if they manage short-term, they're definitely going to manage midterm. So not a lot of long-term, let me say it differently. If they're renting if they're management for long-term, they might not do midterm or short-term. They're just long-term managers. So if you find somebody that does short-term, they will do long-term. So long-term and midterm. So here's what I would do. Phoenix, I'm going to get a list of 10 of the best property managers that I find on Google or Yelp or whatever. I try to find the 10 best property managers. Then I would interview them, and I would interview them many times. Just like actually I said this on the last episode. Again, go back and listen to it. But I share this analogy of starting a convenience store where you build up a business. You would not build up an entire business, a convenience store, lots of money, thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars into the business, and then see somebody walking across the street and say, hey, you got a pulse. Come in here and manage my property, manage my company, manage my inventory, business, and money. No, you wouldn't do that. You would interview a lot of people and a lot of times. And so what I would suggest, you find a good city like Phoenix. The next step, literally don't do anything else. Don't look for realtors. In fact, I get students say, I've coached thousands of students now. A lot of them say, hey, Dustin, I found a great city to invest in. I've already got 6 realtors sending me deals. I'm like, oh my God, no, stop. If you bought one of those properties, who would manage that deal? And I said, nobody. I'm like, okay, you're putting the cart before the horse. And in the last episode, I shared the financing, getting money to buy the property is very easy. In fact, if you're worried about money, trust me, or credit. Trust me, those are not hard. I'll blow those out of I'll blow your mind of how many ways that you can get financing. So don't worry about that. And then finding. Finding is very, very simple to find the properties. What we need, though, is somebody that can manage these long-term, then making money for us. I don't want to talk to my property managers. In fact, I just want to check. I want them to run the business and send me a check every single month. If I have to talk to a property manager like once or twice a month, I'm like, what am I hiring you for? I might need to find somebody else because I don't want to talk to you. I just want you to send me money. Does that all make sense?
It does. And I think that's the big key component. So when you start to have those conversations with them, is that something where you're saying, hey, I'm going to invest in this area and you want to start to interview them based on that? Or how do you get them to talk to you without them thinking you're wasting their time?
Fantastic question. And here's another thing that I try to help my students to realize. So when my students start calling property managers, they will sound like new investors. This is what they'll sound like. Hi, property manager. I'm going to start investing in real estate, and I'm building my team. And you've used this word too. I'm not, looking down on it, but that's a buzzword for property managers because everybody's talked about teams. And when a property manager or even a realtor, that's the first thing that they hear, like, oh, here's a newbie. Oh, I don't want to work with. That's literally what's going to happen. And so now, if you're the property manager, Andrew, this is what I would do if I were an investor talking to you as a property manager. This is literally, I get on the call if I'm going to find it. Hi, property manager. My name is Dustin Heiner. I invest in real estate. I'm looking to find a good property manager. Tell me about your services that you have. Do I give any clarifying about me or any? No. It immediately puts them on, oh, I have to share about me. And that gets them excited. Oh, this might be a good prospect. They're not thinking, oh my goodness, I got to help this newbie invest in real estate. So that's the way to do it. And then you just start talking to them, drawing information out of them as opposed to, because usually what we try to think is, I have to prove myself to this person that I'm good. No, don't do that. You just literally go straight forward and be straightforward and to the point.
Awesome. That's super helpful. And I think overall that's going to be the big thing. And so let's say we find that manager's in place. What else would you do next?
Next up is absolutely finding the financing. Now, I'm not saying go to Bank of America or, big bank, and that's where you get a financing. In fact, I've used over 20 different ways to get creative financing. When I talk about creative financing, it means I didn't have to work my life away, save up for 20 years to then borrow money that, use my savings for a down payment, then borrow money. I didn't have to do that. What I did was I recycled my money over and over again with getting other people's money. OPM, I love that term, using other people's money. You give them a great return on their money. They're happy, and then you get your property and you're happy. It could be private money lenders, hard money lenders. Obviously, we have regular conventional loans. Commercial loans, a DSCR loan is amazing, a debt service coverage ratio loan. It's a commercial loan set in conventional terms, meaning a 30-year fixed, which is amazing, but the property is what guarantees the mortgage, not you working a job. If you go and buy a single-family home to live in, a primary residence, the mortgage broker is going to say, do you make enough money and have a proven track record to pay me back and then I'll borrow you the money? No, DSCR loan doesn't worry about that. It looks at the property. Is that property good enough? Are you buying it for a low amount? Are you going to be able to rent it for us to make money and that property going to cover it? Then great, we'll give you a loan. So and home economic credit, self-directed IRA, you name it. Andrew, I'm going to say, I hesitate to share this because it's an advanced strategy. I do these two things. Number one, I've used a signature loan. That's where you walk into a bank and get an unsecured line of credit to buy real estate. I've done that. I've even used, this is the second one, a credit card. I used a credit card cash advance to get cash to buy the real estate. But here's the reason why I could do it. It's access to capital, and there's a cost for that capital. And I accounted for that cost before I bought the property. I knew if I borrowed this money, my business, remember, we're building a business. Go back and listen to the first episode. We talk all about that. But my business is accounting for that expense. Just like analogy I gave, if you could buy a candy bar for 50 cents and sell it for $1, you'd be thinking, how do I get more 50 cents to buy more candy bars and sell it for $1? Well, if it costs you 25 cents to borrow 50 cents, it doesn't matter if it costs 25 cents. You're still out of pocket 75 cents. Somebody else is paying you $1. You're pocketing 25 cents. So hopefully I'm breaking your the idea in your head that you need money to invest in real estate. There's so many different ways to get the money to invest in real estate.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the most powerful things is how creative you can get with your financing. And just there's so many cool ways that you can do that. So we have the financing in place. And, say for example, we have our property manager, then we get the financing. Then what would you kind of consider to do next? What are the next big, final steps so we can start to actually buy and find deals?
Yeah. So once you have the property manager, they're going to be the ones verifying that you're buying the right property. So that's why we go property manager number one. So I've had lots of people come to me and say, Dustin, I did everything those TikTok gurus told me to do, and I tried to find a property manager, and every property manager I called, they told me they would not manage it because they get shot there. Like, oh, you don't have an asset anymore, you have a liability. What we do instead of after you've bought the property, spending thousands of dollars to buy it, $1,000 to fix it up, and then finding a property manager, instead of that, what you do is you find the property manager first and say, instead of, I already bought this property, no, you don't say that. You say, I'm looking to buy this property. Tell me how much will it rent for? Will you manage it? What's the clientele like? What's the vacancy factor and all that sort of stuff? And what we're talking about, the 30, 60, 90 days, the midterm rentals, you ask them about that. Will this be a good 30-day rental? Oh yeah, there's a hospital that's like, 3 miles away that we probably, and there's a bunch of commercial buildings that are right here that they need a lot of employees. So their employees fly. They're going to know that sort of stuff. And so what we do is we find the right property manager and then we ask them, is this a good property for us to buy? And here's one thing, I give this in the private coaching, but I'll give it to you and all the students. So number one question you need to ask every single property manager, even the ones you're not going to work with, you just need to get an idea. You want to ask this question. If you were to invest your money right now in the city that you manage, where would it be? Because they're going to give you gold. They're going to tell you exactly where that you should invest, and then you just piece it all together. So once you find a good city, make sure you find the right property manager. Then you find your mortgage broker, or you find financing, and we could cover all that in a later thing, but make sure you can buy the property, which is very simple. We can take care of that. But then when you're looking at properties, you want to make sure that the property manager signs off on every single property before you even put in contract in, because they're going to make sure you buy the right property. Does that make sense?
It does, and I think that is probably one of the most valuable questions that you can ask, is especially in an area that you're newer to, is making sure that you have somebody in your corner who can help you through that process. And really, it's not someone like a realtor; it's someone who actually knows the rents and who knows and understands how rental properties work. And I think this is really, really important. A lot of people make the mistake of like trusting in their realtors, and some of them are knowledgeable, but most of them are not thinking about it in the same way that you are. And I think that's really, really important overall for most people to understand. So this has been super, super helpful, Dustin. And I think as we start to go through this, is there anything else that you think I should be doing before, as we kind of progress through this? Yeah,
as you're going through it. So what you realize is, and you said this at the very beginning of the first episode, is how do we scale? That's the number one thing that we need to realize as business owners. If you're a mom and pop, you're not going to scale. It's just the way it's going to be, because you don't have time. You literally don't have enough time in the day for school, if you're going to school, for work, for your kids, whatever it might be, and then to manage the properties and take care of all that. So what I want you to be thinking about is, how do I then scale the business? How do I make sure that I have deals or properties coming to me? And I talked about this in the last episode. We tell every single person that we're an investor. So deals come to us. Then how do we get unlimited financing? I love teaching my students. I have 20 different ways to get financing, but unlimited financing for your real estate, we start putting in place all these different aspects of, do we have this contact for mortgages? How about private money or hard money lenders? Do I have a home that I can get HELOC on now? Do I need to get a self-directed IRA set up so I can keep everything in my IRA? There's so many different things. So we start working down that path. And then what we do is, after we have everything, you're going to realize when you get your property under contract, your property managers are already signed off. You know how much you're going to rent per month. You already know everything, because they're going to tell you all that good stuff. But then you need to have inspections, making sure that the home is inspected. Then you need to make sure how much it's going to cost to fix up. There's so many, we can go down that rabbit trail of before you buy the property. But once you buy the property, you close on the property, you send your money in, they give you the deed, and you take over the property. That's when you get all of your team to work. You don't go there and fix it up. You get everybody else, like your property manager. If they're the contractor too, get them to fix it up. If you hired a separate contractor, you get them to start working on it. But then right away, you get your property manager realizing, we're going to list this very, very soon. In fact, we should probably be fixed up in 2 months, at most 2 months, maybe 2 weeks. Like, it just depends on the property. It depends on how long it takes to get the furnishing and all that sort of stuff. Get ready to take pictures, because I don't want you to be waiting. Because if I can't get there for another week. Like, I told you 2 months ago, we're going to be ready at this date. You be ready. And then you list it on, let's say if it's midterm, I love furnishedfinder.com. Get an account set up there. That's where lots of traveling executives, traveling nurses, they look for properties there, as well as you put it on Airbnb as a 30, 60, 90 days. Like, the minimum is 30 days. Then you're going to find good properties, good people, tenants, to come and rent your property. But that's really it. Then we start letting the team or our business work for us, getting the people inside those properties. As well as, if you find a good property manager, you're not even going to have to put it on Airbnb or VRBO or Furnished Finder. They're going to be the ones finding the tenants for the midterm. In fact, I have one property that I was going to go with the property manager, and it didn't, because I already got it rented. It was great, so I didn't have to worry about it. But anyways, long story short, he was going to find all the tenants for me. He was going to take care of everything, like all the turnover. It's just set it and let that business run. And you just verify everything's working.
I think the huge key is overall, that's what I'm looking for too, is I think overall, I want it to be a set it and forget it type thing where obviously they're just checking in with me when I need them to and making sure that we are on the same page on all this stuff. But setting up those parameters and putting those systems in place so that your business can run itself. I think that is one of the most powerful lessons that you are teaching to all of us as we start to invest in real estate, is taking yourself out of the equation and making sure that you can automate the process so that you don't have to spend your valuable time learning how to, just do all these other various things that a property manager could do for you. So I think that's super, super powerful. And then all you got to do is manage the property manager as time goes on. So that's one of the best things overall. Well, Dustin, this has been so incredibly helpful. Thank you so much again for being in this part two. And for people who have not heard about you or the stuff that you do, where can they find out more about you?
So last time I gave away my free course. You mind if I share that one more time?
Sure, go ahead.
Awesome. So I just want to help 1 million people. My goal in life is helping 1 million people to invest in real estate. Get my real estate investing course completely for free. Show you how to find an area of the country to invest, how to build a business, how to scale it to quit your job. If you text the word rental, RENTAL, rental to 33777. Rental 33777, or go to masterpassiveincome.com/free course, all one word, but I'll give it to you completely for free. I even have my podcast with Andrew's coming on and sharing about his real estate investing. It's basically a solo show. It's called Master Passive Income. And I've been doing it since 2016, just giving out all this coaching. It's like, this is so much fun for me to be able to give all. So go check out Master Passive Income. I've had students literally binge the entire 400 episodes. We're at 400 plus now, but it's just mostly a solo show. But they listen to all of it and they realize, oh my goodness, I can invest. Yes, this is what I have it for. But YouTube, find me. I got a bunch of coaching on there. But one other quick one was Instagram's getting a lot of fun, getting 240,000 followers now. Just didn't buy any of those. No bots whatsoever, just literally hard worked. But yeah, the Dustin Heiner, THE Dustin Heiner. Love to connect with you. Just say, hey, I was listening to you on Andrew's personal finance show, and I'd love to connect with you. But that's my goal, is just help as many people as I can to invest in real estate. But thank you so much for having me on.
And thank you so much for being here. Again, this was so incredibly valuable, and we appreciate you so much.